let's just take a simple example of climate change.
Yeah.
So I'm going to propose that something within the notion of the concept of climate change is really real. I'm not going to want to argue about the specificity, but I'm going to say, look, here's the deal. Human beings have significant impact on the environment in which we live. There's a lot of us. And as we increase our technological capacity, the scope of that impact and the intensity of that impact increases. So as I multiply the lot of us by the magnitude of power that we have now, the ability of our underlying natural substrate to continue to regenerate its capacity to support us is breaking in lots of very important ways. Right? Pick your poison, whether you're talking about concentrations of estrogens turning the frogs gay, or you're talking about shifting in weather patterns that is breaking long-standing agricultural assumptions that are associated with populations. Or, by the way, you're talking about something like the geopolitical implications of Ethiopians trying to build hydroelectric dams that shuts off the water supply to Egypt, who are all going to die, right? There's all kinds of interesting ways of slicing and dicing it. But the bottom line is shit's fucked up and it's going to get real bad real fast. Right? And that basic relationship between humans vis-a-vis each other and humans vis-a-vis nature is the concept. Okay. So that's what I mean when I say that phrase. Shoot, I went off on that to say, what was I saying before I went there?
Climate change was the start of.
All right. So the simple state is that that's true, right? That we're faced with some serious problems, right. And we're all going to have to make a lot of changes in how we live. Right? And for example, you're probably not going to be able to continue to drive your pickup truck the way that you do. Now, by the way,
how did you know?
Al Gore is not going to be able to fly his private jet neither. Yeah. Right? And by the way, we now have a fundamental principle: symmetry. Right? It cannot be there cannot be an asymmetric distribution of responsibility in this particular story past some threshold.
Right.
Everybody's got to have their hand in at the same time and say, okay, I'm gonna make these changes. Yeah. But it's not all bad news. In fact, it's almost none of it's bad news, because here's the thing. Right now we live, almost everybody, extraordinarily alienated from meaningfulness in life. So here's what you're going to trade. You're going to trade a lot of bullshit that's getting in the way of you living a meaningful life. And what you're going to get back is a deeply meaningful life. That's the real trade we're talking about. In the meantime, by the way, here's a cool ancillary benefit. We also solve all the problems of climate change.
Right.
And we solve all the problems of geopolitical conflict. Right? Isn't that neat? Like, I can literally trade you shitty, alienated, existential crisis, not spending time with your loved ones, not dying on your deathbed, surrounded by people who you care about and who care about you, going, that was a good fucking life.
Yeah. A little less shiny metal, but much more beautiful.
Yeah. A little less shiny metal. That's funny. Who was I talking to about that? My daughter. That's funny. So my 18-year-old, like that awakening consciousness, she's like sitting there and she's like, Dad, money's not real. I'm like, okay, let's talk about that. And we were talking about, she's like, how did it come to the point where there was this concept where people had what they needed, and somebody else came along and said, hey, I'd like to give you some shiny metal you don't need in exchange for that thing that you got. And I'm like, and she's like, how'd that happen? I was like, well, it probably went like this. Shiny fucking metal, man. Look how shiny. Don't you want that? Oh, you can't have it. I got it. You can't have it.
Yeah.
Right? The mimetic desire, like the Girardian.
Combined with a knife like this.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, whoa. And it was like, and then as soon as one person's got it, one person's got it, and everybody else has got chickens, but one guy's got a shiny piece of metal. And like, I'm the only one who's got it. And everybody else is like, oh, got to have that, right? But there's only so much of it. And suddenly things go upside down, something like that. Obviously, that's kind of like a grade school narrative. But the point that you put, I think, is very nice, is a little less shiny metal and a little more, what was the phrase you said?
But much more beautiful or something like that.
Much more beautiful, much more wholesome.
Right.
And by the way, this really neat ancillary benefit that it will actually continue.
Right.
So your children and your grandchildren will also be able to live a real, healthy, meaningful life. Like, if you're not signing up for that, then you are in fact my enemy. Like, that's
which I think you and I can, because we've actively been probably thinking about it, it can kind of imagine and put it into view. But even for myself, still something so difficult to really imagine is, that kind of world, because of how quickly we or how deep the environment and flavor of life really seeps into us all, so.
Oh God, we're all incredibly addicted. Like we
Right.
are,
Yeah.
we need like the biggest AA meeting of all time.
Right.
My name is Jordan. I'm addicted to
Yes.
all kinds of shit.
Yes, I'm addicted to, yeah.
Like I'm addicted to sitting in chairs, I'm
Yeah.
addicted to air conditioning. I'm really addicted
Yeah.
to my phone. Like it's brutal.
Addicted to clothes. Damn those clothes.